Donald Trump announced yesterday that the U.S. is officially withdrawing from the Paris Climate Agreement. Let's watch what he said in the Rose Garden.
In order to fulfill my solemn duty to protect America and its citizens, the United States will withdraw from the Paris Climate Accord Thank you. Thank you. But begin negotiations to re-enter either the Paris Accord or in really entirely new transaction on terms that are fair to the United States, its businesses, its workers, its people, its taxpayers. So we're getting out, but we will start to negotiate, and we will see if we can make a deal that's fair. And if we can, that's great. And if we can't, that's fine. It is estimated it would only produce a 0.2 of 1 degree. Think of that. This much Celsius reduction in global temperature by the year 2100. Tiny, tiny amount. At what point does America get demeaned? At what point do they start laughing at us as a country? I was elected to represent the citizens of Pittsburgh, not Paris.
You do know that the deal is not like just for the people of Paris, right? I was elected to represent the people of Pittsburgh, not Paris. The Paris Agreement isn't specifically for the people of Paris. Not sure he knows that. He said, at what point is the world going to start laughing at us? Or, Don, you're making that happen. You've been making that happen. It's going on right now. I mean, the lack of self-awareness is amazing. And look, there's no... Sean Hannity on his program likes to say, he has this like cute thing he says whenever liberals start going after conservatives because, oh my God, they're gutting the clean water protections and clean air protections. And he says this condescending thing like, oh, what? Like you think conservatives and Republicans don't want clean water? It's not that you don't want clean water. It's that the policies that you're pushing, the net effect of it is to have dirty water and dirty air. There's more pollution. So it's the same thing here. You get these talking points from the right where they say, what? You think conservatives don't care about the future of our planet for our grandkids? It's not that you don't care. It's that you don't understand the science and you don't understand the consequences if you do something like pull out of the Paris Climate Agreement. And that's exactly what he's doing here. And they're in over their head. I was tweeting this yesterday. The Republicans and Donald Trump, they're just simply in over their heads. They don't know about science. I think they genuinely believe it's a hoax. It also is quite convenient that a lot of these Republicans take money from big oil at the same time. So they get a lot of money from the fossil fuel industry. They get a lot of money from coal. And then they push legislation that keeps fossil fuels in the driver's seat and screws over renewable technology and green technology, the energy of the future. And so it's a mix of, hey, we're corrupt and we've taken money from industries that want to ignore climate change, but it's also that they genuinely don't know the science, they don't believe in it, and they don't care. And, you know, you heard a whole bunch of... The rest of the speech, by the way, it was just like right-wing talking point after right-wing talking point. These are things like directly taken from Mark Levin and Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity, who got it from fossil fuel-funded right-wing think tanks. And they try to frame it as like, you know, the U.S. is getting screwed in this deal. The jobs, we're going to lose jobs. It's going to be so horrible. No, fighting climate change is an economic opportunity. They view it as like, but we're going to lose the fossil fuel jobs. Yeah, and we lost the horse and buggy jobs when the car came around. But we did all right with the car. In fact, we did better with the car now, didn't we? By the same token, okay, you have natural gas and oil and coal and all these dirty energy sources. Well, guess what? When we move to the different kinds of energy that we're going to have in the future, it's a whole new industry just waiting to blossom. Jobs waiting to be created. It's the next boom. I mean, we're still kind of coasting off the internet boom, going all the way back to the 90s. But, you know, that's going to run out at some point, and what's going to be the next thing that pumps up the economy and gives people jobs and is basically a roadmap for economic well-being for the future? It's going to be green technology and renewable technology. They're trying to stave that off. So, I mean, it couldn't be more wrong. It's not like, oh, jobs is going to cost us jobs, we can't do it. It's the opposite. It's we can't afford not to do it because of all the jobs that will be created when we do go in that direction. And then also, these guys are clueless. He keeps talking about how China and India, oh my God, they're lagging behind and they have goals that are easier to achieve than we do as part of this deal. China just announced not that long ago, not only are they going to do a massive green revolution for themselves, they're going to start doing it in places overseas. So they're doing this like international green revolution now, which means they're going to create the technologies of the future. They're going to get the inevitable patents. They're going to be the ones to make the money. So, you know, it's like the empire in decline here in the U.S. where we're so stuck on the warfare economy where, okay, we have parts for our military made in every single state, and our warfare for us is our welfare. We have so many jobs tied to the defense industry that they're like, what? No, we don't need to go the green technology route. We don't need to go the renewable energy route. Let's leave that on the side, and let's continue using big oil. Let's continue having the fossil fuel industry own our government, and we'll just keep our warfare jobs, and we won't even worry about the technologies of the future. Okay, but then you're going to lag behind. I mean, you want to talk about a crisis of American leadership. This is as bad as it gets, man. Pulling out of the... And by the way, he also seemingly doesn't get that the Paris Climate Agreement, there's a reason it's called the Paris Climate Agreement or Accord, and it's not called the Paris Climate Treaty, because it's non-binding. So in other words, it's like a gentleman's agreement between nations where they say, hey, look, these are the things that we're going to do. Here are the things that you're going to do, and let's do it for the future of humanity, and, you know, we'll try to reach these goals even though it's not technically ratified into law. And by the way, the reason it's the treaty is because the Republicans in Congress said, yeah, we're not going to approve it. Everywhere else, every other modern nation's like, yes, let's do it. Let's make it a treaty. Let's make this like legally binding here. The Republicans were like, no, we're not going to do it. So now we did the agreement, the accord, so the non-binding agreement, and then now we're still like, no, we're out. We're out. When is the world is laughing at us. When are they going to stop laughing at us? Right? I think that's what he said. When are they going to stop laughing at us? Well, certainly not now. They're going to keep laughing at you. That's what's going to happen because of your idiotic anti-science decision. So for those of you who don't know the details about the Paris Climate Agreement, let me give them to you. It limits the temperature increase to no more than 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit above the levels of the years 1850 to 1900. So in other words, it limits the increase in temperature to no more than 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit above the pre-industrial era. There's also a harder goal of 1.5 degrees Celsius. So that's not like that as a goal. They didn't go far enough. You know, like we're at the abyss here, and they're like, yeah, let's pump the brakes slightly as we head into the cement wall and go from 60 miles an hour down to like 48 miles an hour. It's like, no, ideally you'd want to just stop the car before the cement wall. But of course, again, this is the problem when you have special interests owning the government, not just here in the U.S., but the world over, and corporations who are against the well-being of the future of the world. they ultimately make all the decisions. Everything has to be filtered through them. So even among the better administrations, like Democratic administrations here in the U.S., they're like, let's slightly ameliorate the destruction of humanity and push it off for like another 100 years or so. Wow. But the Republicans are like, yeah, fuck that. Let's actually speed up and go into the wall. We're going 60. Let's go 75 right into the wall. So that's the heart of the agreement, is limit the temperature increase to no more than 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit above the pre-industrial era temperatures. Also, the U.S. vowed to cut our emissions by 26 to 28% below 2005 levels by the year 2025. So that means short-term goal is to like basically cut a quarter off of our carbon emissions. So that means we would need to move in the direction, to an extent, of green technology and renewable technology. And, you know, you have to do that for the future. It's not a question. Like, you're going to have to get off fossil fuels or else runaway greenhouse gas effect and we're all fucked. So, again, this is a very vanilla, not aggressive kind of goal. As you almost file this under the duh category because you have to at least do this. But now they're saying we're not even going to do that. We also pledged $3 billion to the Green Climate Fund, which helps developing countries adapt and mitigate practices to fight climate change. So in other words, when a country is developing, they tend to, you know, not do as much pollution regulation. They tend to use dirty forms of energy and use it quite often. So the idea is, hey, we'll pledge $3 billion to help these countries as well not use the dirty energy as much and therefore fight climate change more effectively. And then of the 195 negotiating countries that signed the agreement, 147 have ratified it. So we're talking an overwhelming majority of the countries, and the only UN countries, so countries that are part of the United Nations, that did not ratify it, Nicaragua and Syria. And now the U.S. We're joining that elite list of Nicaragua, Syria, and now us that say we're not on board with this climate agreement. So look, man, you elect idiots, you get idiotic decisions. You know, when Trump said on Twitter a while back, climate change is a Chinese hoax. The Chinese hoax to ruin our manufacturing is what he said. Again, to make that argument makes less than no sense, because when you accept the reality of climate change, that means you need to create new jobs in green technology and renewable technology. So it's going to destroy our manufacturing base by making it stronger than ever. That makes no sense, Don. It makes no sense. So he's this conspiracy-minded buffoon, and now that he's in power, he's making decisions that are right in alignment with that set of beliefs. You know, there were signs that, hey, maybe it's not as bad, because there was a story about how for one of his golf courses, they took preventative measures to, you know, do something regarding sea level rise. So I don't know if they put up a seawall or something like that at one of his golf courses. And so people were like, I guess he believes in climate change, and when he's president, he'll act somewhat responsibly on this issue. Apparently not. Apparently whoever was in charge at the golf course made that decision, and not Trump himself. And he does believe it's a hoax. And now he pulled us out of it. And by the way, let me just say, usually, most of the time, I'm not kidding about that, most of the time, when you talk about Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump, you bring up something fucked up Donald Trump did, or something he believes, and you could point to Hillary Clinton doing or saying something similar. So that was one of the big problems in the election, is that while there was some false equivalence between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, there was also a lot of actual equivalence. Like, no, seriously, like, she did this thing that you're mad at Donald Trump for saying he wants to do. But that being said, that most of the time you could point to something Hillary said or did that's what Donald Trump wants to do. There are instances where that's not the case, and she's just unequivocally better. Now, in terms of climate change, she was bad because she pushed fracking around the world as Secretary of State. That's inexcusable. But here's one thing that we know she wouldn't have done. Pulled out of the Paris Climate Agreement. So you could say she's bad on the issue of climate change, and she wouldn't do the revolutionary things that we need in order to fully move to a renewable, energy future. That's totally true. There's no way she would go far enough on that front. But she would have been like in the mold of Obama, I think, or maybe a little bit to the right of Obama, and she would have kept us in the Paris Climate Agreement, and that would have been better. So this is an area where if you're trying to say there's an equivalence, that's not true. There's just one, she would have been better than him, and that's a fact, and we should all admit that. And now we're seeing the worst of the worst on this front. So it's sad, man. And you know when people say, oh, the U.S. leadership role is like diminishing. In some respects, I like it when people say that because they're referring to, for example, like military leadership. Like, okay, Donald Trump is like not hot on NATO, and he's like, yeah, pay for your own defense, Europe. Like, what's wrong with you? In that front, I like it that we're no longer the leader, because the leader means let's blow billions of dollars on fucking unnecessary military bases and stuff like that. But when people say on this front, oh, the U.S. is no longer the world leader, well, then it's a problem on the climate change front. Because yes, we're isolating ourselves from the world. An agreement that the overwhelming majority of the world and almost all the UN countries said we need to do this for our future. We're pulling out of that. So yeah, now there's like a leadership vacuum in the world on arguably the most important issue we face, climate change. And we're the dunce boy country that's sitting in the corner with our dunce hat on, our tinfoil dunce hat on, sitting there like, because we're run by a bunch of anti-science clowns. So it's a sad day. It's a sad day in America because not only do we need to do the Paris Climate Agreement, we need to go way further. And they're saying, fuck that, we're going to get out of it and we're going to go full speed in the wrong direction. The final point I'll bring up is this. Oftentimes when you talk about these issues, you have to frame them in a way where conservatives can understand it, and it touches an issue close to their heart. So let me bring up an issue that should really concern people who love Donald Trump and people who are on the far right. If we don't immediately address climate change, and I'm talking, jump to full renewable and green technology. If we don't do that in the short term, the Middle East, certain parts of the Middle East, are going to be uninhabitable. And you think you have a refugee crisis now with the war in Syria? Just wait until certain parts of the Middle East are completely and utterly uninhabitable. You know what's going to happen? Those people are going to leave the Middle East, and they're going to go into all the other countries. So all this, oh my God, we don't want Arabs, we don't want Muslims, we need to protect our people, we need to be tough with our immigration laws. If you don't address climate change and you don't address it right now, you will be creating the worst refugee crisis the world has ever seen. And here's what's going to happen. Nations clearly are not going to let people starve to death and die of thirst and get burned to death in the Middle East. There will be refugees accepted absolutely everywhere. So this is a language you should understand, that to avoid the future refugee crisis of Middle Easterners going everywhere, including your country, maybe you should address climate change, and you should address it right now.